Smells like ammonia. It's not regenning. Hasn't regened in about 100 miles. It's a little bit of soot on the tailpipe. These things don't catch at all. DPF. It's muffler there. Hello and welcome to today's video. This is going to be a numbers video, and it has to do with the DPF on my 09 truck. And this truck is mostly stock when it comes to emissions, particularly the exhaust part, and it still does its regens and everything else. So I started keeping track of how often it does that, and the results are very interesting. I have a lot of theories. I'd really like to learn more about what the actual logic is behind how these cycles work. So what I'm keeping track of is from the end of one regen to the beginning of the other. So basically miles where there's no regen taking place. And as you can see, none of them were able to do 200 miles. That was my goal, just to find a way to get over 200 miles. I still have not been able to do that, no matter what I do. So there's some notables in here. We're averaging 173 miles per regen. Our best is 196. Our worst is 117. We were doing some towing in here, and there are some stories behind some of these. This one here, the 175, it started that regen on my way down to pick up the trailer, and then when I was backing up and hooking up the trailer, I was idling there, and it turned off the regen. And then when I took off with the trailer, it started back up again and finished. Now, pulling a trailer, you should expect more miles. That's what everyone would have you believe, but we actually ended up getting less. And part of that may have been due to the fact that the regen got interrupted. So, if you do a lot of city driving, that's a lot of interruption going on if you're idling around all the time. So, same deal goes for like what I did hooking up the trailer. Now, we ended up doing very well after pulling the trailer home. After on our next tank, or next regen cycle. So maybe there was a little benefit from pulling the trailer there. And then we've got some others, and here's a bad one. 117. This, I'm not sure why that one was so bad. That was when my clutch slave cylinder went bad. And so maybe there was a lot of idling going on there. There was a lot of idling going on up here for this 165 one. Someone rear-ended the truck, and I idled for a half an hour, so we only ended up getting 165 miles on that one. But overall, that's what I have so far. We've had a few good ones. The 190s I like to see. We did, I think this 190 one right here was pure highway. I jumped on the highway, drove 2 hours, 2.5 hours, parked the truck, jumped back on the highway, drove, zero idle. Did not improve any more than the prior one was. And I was doing like 10% city miles on that 193. And then this 190, just cruising on the highway the whole time. And still could not do any better. I've tried fuel additives, trying to boost the cetane, see if I could make the fuel burn cleaner, less soot with higher cetane. Didn't work. Didn't have any effect. No, nothing notable here, one way or the other. So part of me's like, this thing's on it defaults, where it's like it'll regen if it's getting filled up, the DPF will. But at the same time, the computer, I've heard, may initiate one after a certain amount of time. So a certain amount of time goes by, no matter whether it needs it or not, it'll do one. And that'll explain why we can't get any better than we have been doing it, because it's probably hitting that timer. But that's only a theory. I don't know 100% if that's actually a real thing. One other theory I have about the timer thing is engine speed, where it says, hey, you went X amount of time at X RPM, therefore we're going to start a regen. And that would be interesting, because if I went to a taller tire, which I intend to do, that will bring the RPMs down and should theoretically allow us to extend these intervals more if it's tripping some timer. But if I didn't say it already, I don't even know if this timer is a real thing. As far as how I'm coping with this, like, how am I dealing with the regens? It is an inconvenience. It does cost me fuel in more ways than one. You know, that the restrictive stuff on the exhaust, how it's consuming fuel to burn off the soot, that all hurts my fuel economy, and that's why it only gets, you know, really poor fuel economy. I will have a fuel economy video once I get a little more data. But it's pretty poor, and especially unloaded. Towing, it's actually not too bad. But besides that, the other way it gets me is when the regen starts, I wanna drive until it's done. So I've done a lot of driving, fair amount of miles. Just, you know, it starts the regen, so I drive for 15 minutes till it's done, or 20 minutes sometimes is how long it takes. On the highway, it usually gets done in about 15 minutes. So I end up driving 15, 16, 17 miles to finish it. So you end up losing some fuel there. But it's also inconvenient because, well, you're wasting time doing that too. You know, maybe you got somewhere to be, or maybe you picked up some food and it's getting cold. You're trying to do this regen. But I like to make sure I finish the regens, because I just want it to, I don't want it to have to do it again anytime soon. I want it to get as much time in as possible in between, because I'm worried a little bit about fuel dilution in the oil from this, and there'll probably be a video on that coming up in the next few weeks. I'm going to investigate that a little bit further. So, but with that Edge CTS monitor I have, it's really a big help, because I know when they're taking place, and now that I've been able to monitor it for, you know, a few cycles, like you just saw on my paper, I'm pretty happy that I can now more or less predict when I can expect one. So usually when I've gone about 150 miles since my last one, I will, you know, expect to potentially have to do a regen on my next drive. Anyways, I think that's all I got for you today. Hopefully it sheds some light on these things. You know, I'd love to delete the truck, and I know the viewers would love it too. But with the EPA cracking down and stuff, I don't know. I think the tuners are really off-road race tuners. They're getting put out of business. I'm not sure how bad it really is, or if it's all, you know, just exaggerated. But that's going to do it for me today. I'll see you in the next one.